Lava tube at Site 17, expanded draft. Rain needles my ranch house roof hard enough to stitch new holes. The radio on my kitchen counter is turned to volume 2 because that's the only setting that doesn't wake things up. I keep the Beretta on the table and the newspaper under my palm so the photos don't slide when the light flickers. They always flicker right before a call. The call comes. Urgent, classified. 6 kids from the university drove past chains and red signs into a lava tube mouth that isn't lava anymore. I'm asked for consultation, which means leadership without rank and blame without records. They give me 2 men and call us a team. Mason meets me first, tall and freckled, hands patchworked with old burns from a past life of making bombs stop ticking. He keeps those hands tucked into his sleeves like they might remember heat. Raphael arrives quiet, a compact marine with a cross that he touches without noticing. We don't shake much. We inventory, batteries, flares, knives, radios with extra shielding that makes them heavy enough to drag a shoulder down. I ask for 1 more coil of climbing line and a second beacon. The supply sergeant nods too quickly, later I'll realize he was already hearing the double clicks. The base is 3 canvas streets and a diesel heartbeat on the edge of the Zunai lava field. The ground is black rope frozen mid-flow. Someone has spray-painted dates on the basalt like tally marks nobody intends to add up. A relay clicks in a green box beside the generator. A stencil on the metal reads, "Do not correct the flicker." The letters aren't new. Someone painted over the old warning and wrote it again, like you'd re-etch a headstone in the same stone after weather made it forget. Colonel Ruiz is all edges. She lays maps down and then a sealed envelope on top of the basalt flows. Her voice is low and never waits long enough to be answered. 6 hours in. If you're not out, the entrance is sealed. If you encounter non-standard conditions, follow the card. The white card is the size of a motel key. For typed lines. Keep radio at 2. Never 0. Never 3. Do not wipe fogged surfaces. If a relay double-clicks, do not move for 60 seconds. Avoid reflective glass after 03:17 hours. The rules are not argued. Rules that simple are always paid for in advance. I slide the card into the breast pocket where a prayer might go, paper warm against older scar. Hector drives. 5th generation local, cigarettes jammed soft into a pocket. He laughs once, without humor, when Ruiz says the word guide. I know where the mouth is, he says. I don't go in. My granddaddy fenced one of these tubes before the feds did. Said holes in rock are like wells. Sometimes they're for water. Sometimes they're for something that climbs. He taps ash into the wind that keeps failing to pick a direction. We roll past sandstone bluffs that keep their own weather and pinion that rustles like pages in a dry church. The truck's AM band fails from music to weather to a tone that isn't FCC approved. I dial it down to 2. It's habit. It's a rule now, apparently. I can live with rules that feel like habits I already have. We hike. The pinyon and juniper go silent the way a room does when a secret is told. No deer, no gnats. The compass needle loses faith and lurches until it points at the center of my skull. Wind moves in directions the branches don't accept. Somewhere under the crusted lava, water runs backwards. The flows are pocked with skylights, the collapsed roofs of old tubes. The one we want stays intact too long and then begins collapsing only when we start being able to see it. Hector stops at the ridge of black rock and smokes like it's oxygen. He points at a round absence in the cooled flow across the cut wash. That's all it is from a distance, absence. Closer, it's a shape that pretends to be round but never repeats the same circle twice. The chain link is scissored open in the neat way bolt cutters do it when hands aren't shaking. Signs hang out of square angles. Authorized personnel only. Geological hazard. A newer hand spray-painted stay out and then, smaller, still in there. We leave Hector on the rim with the truck door open and a map drawn by a dead man's father. He thumbs the lighter and says, "If I hear the generator double-click, I don't move for a minute. Not even to put out my smoke." He says it like prayer. The smoke threads the air and then deviates around a place that isn't there. He doesn't look at that place. Neither do I. We go in. The air changes at 20 feet. Cold through the sleeves. Damp from a direction that doesn't have walls. My lamp skates along basalt polished to a human shine. The rock is warm where it should be breathless. My beam catches carvings. Not words, not pictures, shallow channels in a math my head resists. The urge to touch them is a dog on a leash. Mason's burned hands hover and then jerk away like muscle remembers what heat is for. He swallows and says the smell is like coins in snow. The first chamber holds 6 sleeping bags and 1 notebook. A girl's name in neat blue pen on the cover. Pages of ordinary handwriting lean toward the date where the lines start to bend. Heat signatures on the mesa. Dreams full of a hum she can't write down because it disappears when she looks straight at it. Tim went deeper, the last line says. He said he heard tapping. He said bring the radio. The page corner has a small semicircle torn out as if teeth tried to be careful. We go deeper because there is a blood bead trail that has not browned yet. Because that's what we were sold as purpose. Our radios hiss like a winter TV in a trailer. I keep my thumb trained on the volume wheel out of bad habit. Twice the knurl bites my skin at 3 and I roll it back fast, apology whispered to metal. Talk to it like you talk to a horse, my father used to say about machines. Don't spook what you've got to sit. The symbols thicken until the wall is a page. In my periphery they don't stay put. When I aim my beam they freeze. When I blink they are different. There is fog where there should be dust. It clings to stone and skin without dripping. I keep my sleeves down. I don't write on mirrors anymore, even when I'm alone. Mason says the grooves feel familiar in the bones of his fingers without touching them. Raphael crosses himself and then looks embarrassed and then stops looking anything. We slide down a grade that feels like the inside of a throat. A dome opens. My light goes up and then falls back on me. In the center stands something that moves without moving. Black stone shot with threadlight that pulses like a vein. Every pulse tightens the band around my temples. Breath feels like it has to be negotiated for. The floor is not level, it wants us in certain places at certain distances like an old ritual that forgot the words and only kept the spacing. 5 bodies lie around the base at measured distances. Boots, jackets, student IDs. Warm skin. No wounds. Expressions that belong to people who saw the last frame of a film none of us should ever rent. I touch a wrist. I hear the radio behind me click twice and then I don't move. 60 seconds is a long time in a room that breathes back. Somewhere inside the walls, there are steps that sync with my own pulse and then get ahead of it. On the 50th second a piezo scream from nowhere flicks a shower of grit off the ceiling. On the 60th, the world pretends to be one again. Mason drifts toward the center like his boots are on an airport walkway. I catch his collar and the force that throws him away from the monolith throws me too. I land with my lamp painting upward into nothing. Mason sits up and starts listing coordinates and ratios like he's reading a receipt. His burned fingers sketch in air and the air remembers. The lines he draws hang for a heartbeat like smoke and then soak into nothing like ink into thirsty paper. Raphael touches him and his nose starts bleeding a thread that doesn't break. They're friendly, he says in a voice he borrows. They don't arrive all at once. They require cleared paths. You are a path. The voice he borrows is someone's mother. It makes the hairs along my ribs stand up as if I had fur. I do not wipe the fog off my lamp lens. I keep the smear. I look at the floor. I use the shadow shapes instead of the bright ones. The card in my pocket warms against my ribs like a small animal. I think of the stencil on the generator at base and the hand that repainted what weather tried to erase. I hit the emergency beacon. A red blink. Then nothing. The monolith brightens from the inside like silver is learning to be liquid. The symbols crawl like frost from a freezer door thawing too fast. The dome breathes heavier. My teeth itch at the roots. The sound my tongue makes against my palate feels like it matters to someone I can't see. Price gets collected. Raphael's laugh goes high and glassy. He looks at the space between bodies and nods to something moving there none of us can light. He says a word I can't keep in my head without it burning a corner. Mason weeps and then smiles and then stops doing either. His pupils are two pinholes in snow glare. He whispers that the sky has seams and someone is pulling threads through them with a bone needle. He says the bone is ours. Back, I say. Mason doesn't hear. I use the heavy part of my rifle where it isn't a gun. We have used that end before when we were younger and halls were narrower. He goes limp. Raphael follows something into the side tunnel with a child's run. The stone closes that throat and the sound is not rock. The echo that returns has extra footsteps and one of them is the one I made yesterday. We leave because leaving is the only verb left. The tube invents extra junctions as if it's wishing us luck with bad directions. A relay double-clicks. I don't move. A rock the size of a sink punches the floor where my foot would have been. I breathe out. The radio hums like a wire in winter wind. Once the light stutters and shows the wall as a mirror, and in that moment my face is 40 and 6 and 8 at once, and none of the versions want this job. There is an exit ahead that is smaller than I remember and less interested in being round. We push through. The land behind us exhales too hard and collapses a lung. Pinion fall into holes. The rim shifts under boots that remember other mud. The sky overhead is a lid dropped wrong on a pot. We climb until the air remembers it's outside. Hector lies 20 feet from the truck like he was set down and then made into an expression. His cigarette is burned to the filter between two fingers that never quite meet. There are no marks on his body. The engine is idling. The door is open. The radio in the dash hisses at volume 2. A jackrabbit has died on the hood as if it ran out of instructions there. At the base the medics try to name what Mason is doing as shock. You can put morphine on shock and gel on burns and pressure on bleeding. You can only put silence on a math that moves. Ruiz goes closed face and efficient. She doesn't ask about Raphael. She doesn't say his name like saying it might offer a path. We get lifted out on dry straps that have mud baked into them from another job. The lava field shrinks. A black seam opens in the juniper and then folds away like it remembers we saw it. Ruiz's voice fills my headset. Report. I tell her we failed to recover 5 and failed to recover Raphael and succeeded in not bringing anything out we didn't mean to. She does not ask for detail. She orders the seal. They pour concrete into the throat. They call it remediation on the paperwork. On the generator cabinet the stencil is already being repainted. The man with the brush doesn't turn when it double-clicks. He stops moving. 60 seconds. The paint doesn't drip. When he moves again the new letters look older than the old ones. I go home to a ranch house with windows I don't look at after 3:17. The radio stays at 2. I hold the Beretta in my hand when the rain mispronounces my roof as a drum line. Sometimes I unfold a map. Pins bloom across the southwest and then drift toward deserts that don't have caves. Letters arrive from Arizona written in a hand I know down to the hesitation between R and A. They always come without return addresses. They always smell like dust from a place that never had carpets. They come folded wrong, as if the envelope taught the paper a different geometry. I burn them. Mostly. One I keep in a drawer because it's not a letter. It's a photograph of a red rock ringed with frost. Someone scratched a single carving beside it with a car key. When I pull the photo into the light, the carving is in a different place than the last time. I close the drawer. I wash my hands. I don't write anything on the fogged mirror, and I don't dry the glass with my sleeve. The towel hangs unused like a quiet witness. 6 months. A government psychiatrist with kind eyes and no map visits every 6 months. She calls the headaches residual. I call them rehearsal. There is pressure at the back of vision where the dome used to sit in my head. Sometimes in the hardware store, when the fluorescent buzz is off by a half note, my arm moves like it's spelling something on the aisle air. I put both hands in my pockets and squeeze fistfuls of nails until I'm only one thing again. Once I find that the nails in my fist have bent themselves into right angles, I pay for them and leave the bent shapes on the passenger seat like talismans that don't believe. I drive out to a trailhead in the rain on a Tuesday because Tuesdays are when calls come. The fence across the old service road has a federal sign and, under it, a hand-lettered board nailed crooked, "Do not go quiet." I stand there too long. My radio clicks once and then again. I do not move. My breath stays in my throat like it knows to wait with me. A raven counts my seconds out loud in a language that is only numbers and hunger. When 60 seconds pass, a mule deer edges out of the brush, sees me, and decides I'm not in her version of the world. She flicks her ears, steps through a shape that was not there, and is simply gone in a way that doesn't leave behind what should be left behind. The brush settles. Rain resumes spelling the wrong word. The radio hums a note that makes my teeth feel old. The hole she stepped through remembers her hooves and then forgets them with effort. At night I do something like sleep with the Beretta within reach and the card on my chest under the shirt. The card heats under skin when I dream of silver veins and breath like a bellows. In the dream, Mason is standing with his hands out, palms up, fingers tracing invisible lines that hook into the wool of the dark. He is saying numbers that pull the room sideways. The numbers taste like copper and drought. In the morning the news prints 3 hikers missing near Winslow, Arizona. Equipment found dry. Radios dead. A deputy quotes interference. The photo shows a round dark that tries too hard to be circle. I cut the article and tape it under a map edge. I tape over the tape and then nail the corner so my hands have to do 5 things to look at it again. I tell myself ritual is just a way to put one rule between you and another. Once I take the old beacon out to the field where the grass stays short because the soil won't let it not. I press the button. A red blink. I wait. A helicopter goes across the far county sky, indifferent. The beacon warms a little like a small belly but nothing else arrives. When I pry it open that night with a flathead I find the board inside etched with the same shallow channels I carry under the back of my scalp. I put the pieces in a coffee can and take it to the shed. I don't bury metal anymore. It surfaces when it wants to anyway. Raphael signs the next thing he sends with only the initial. Join us willingly or be part of the spill, it says. He spells willingly wrong. He always used to spell willingly right. I put the paper in the stove and watch the corner refuse to blacken for too long. The smoke that rises tries to trace the same channels the board had. I open a window and the wind refuses to act like wind. On a Sunday that shouldn't have snow but does, Ruiz appears in my driveway with the car that reflects nothing even when it's clean. She doesn't come in. She looks at my porch and at the radio through the window. There are new clusters, she says. Your name came up on a list. I can't tell you which list. She wipes her mouth with a knuckle like she wants to scratch out words. The generator at her base has 3 relays now, she says. 2 of them sometimes click together. We've stopped correcting the flicker, she adds. It only makes more of it. We stand in the weather that isn't decided. The snow falls and then unfalls and then pretends it never tried. I tell her what she already knows, that the rules are not uniforms. They adapt. If you wipe a mirror, you make a surface. If you turn the dial to 0, you invite a louder substitute. If you fix the light, you break the seam it's holding shut. She watches the snow bead on the hood and refuses to form lines. She nods once and leaves a plain envelope on the step that is heavier than paper should be. Inside, a photograph from a dry lake bed. The circle is cut out of salt and ringed with traffic cones like that could matter. A technician in a hard hat is reaching, 2 fingers extended, the universal human impulse to touch the thing. In the far corner, a green generator with a stencil I recognize. The man's shadow goes in 2 directions, and neither fits him. I don't sleep. I inventory. I lay out the card, the Beretta, 2 radios, the beacon in pieces, a new coil of line, chalk, a mirror I intend not to use, a small tin of graphite that I will. I lay out the rule I didn't write on the card: if you have to go, set your leaving up like you intend to come back. I leave a note for no one. It says, volume at 2. The second entry is not a mission. It is debt service. The concrete plug at Site 17 is warm to the touch, though the desert night is not. The plug has hairline cracks like veins under a wrist. I put my ear to it and hear the radio snow I hear in my kitchen at 0317. The math under the scalp says, here, 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 like a metronome you could nail trees down by. I mark with graphite, not chalk. Chalk invites clean lines. Graphite smears and lies like a witness who wants you to live. I pick 3 points and stop before I pick a 4th, because 4 makes corners and corners attract. I don't open it. I draw a square around the plug and I don't stand inside it. I wait for the double click. When it comes from nowhere, I don't move. A horned toad climbs onto my boot and makes a map on the leather and then leaves the map behind, actual pencil on actual hide. It blinks at me and continues. I take that as permission I didn't ask for. The third entry is official again. Ruiz calls in the morning as if my not sleep were on the schedule she keeps. We have a mirror event near Chain of Craters, she says. We need you to tell the team to not look at it. I say, I don't tell men not to look at mirrors. She says, then stand with them while they look at their boots. I say yes because saying no to weather doesn't stop it. Mason hears me say yes and shakes his head once like he's checking for loose bolts in his neck. The team is fresh. They wear their gear too high and their jokes too loud. I give them small rules that sound like fieldcraft. Drink. Breathe through your nose. If you lose count, restart at your shoes. Assign names to items you're carrying and remind the world of them. Rope. Knife. Light. Card. They nod like men nod at a funeral, solemn at the right places, itchy under collars. We move. The mirror is not glass. It is obsidian cooled wrong, a lens from a giant's I dropped and stepped on. It shows sky without clouds when we have clouds. It shows the men as taller and more rested than they are. It shows me younger and more married than I am. The youngest of the fresh team makes a sound like a hinge in need of oil. Don't fix it, I say. He laughs like he doesn't know why. We walk past. The rule holds because we held it. At the third switchback a relay double clicks where there is no relay. The men stop because I stop. 60 seconds. A coyote crosses the path carrying a radio in its mouth by the antenna. It looks up at us like we are the ones who should be ashamed. The radio is set at 2. I decide to take that for luck and not omen, and that is how men go on. We find the circle. We always find the circle. It's cut into pumice like someone tried to build a well in brittle bread. The generator hums a key higher than its label. The stencil is right. Do not correct the flicker. One of the fresh team nudges the frame of the floodlight with a boot to aim it, instinct, helpful, the human thing. I catch his ankle and say, we don't correct what corrects us. He apologizes to the light without smiling and I put a note under his competence, keep him. We lay line. We don't anchor to corners. We anchor to knots. Mason breathes numbers. He does it under his breath now, like he learned how to be polite to rooms. He writes in air with those burned hands, and this time the air doesn't remember. He looks relieved and sick at once. Raphael is not there. He is there the way a watermark is there. The symbols along the cut rock have a pattern that feels like his laugh from the dome but stretched thin. I taste copper. My tongue wants to say the word he said that hurt memory. I say friend instead. The obsidian knotglass behind us hiccups a reflection I don't turn for. We set 4 flares and don't light them. We set 2 radios and don't turn them up. I take the fresh team down one at a time as if the earth we are entering were a river that could sweep men and the words for them away. The smell is damp coins again. The walls are the wrong smooth. The fog is disciplined and stays where it's told. Under the first bend there are objects laid out as if on a workbench without the bench. A student's boot with 2 extra eyelets that never existed. A camera that has no lens and sees anyway. A notebook that says the same sentence in 4 tenses that don't exist. I don't read it out loud. I don't read it again. We step around the bench that isn't. One of the fresh team whispers, "Sir, permission to pick up the camera." I say, "Permission denied." He nods like he might have argued yesterday. The rule gets easier when you survive it once. We hear tapping. Of course we hear tapping. It is not Morse. It is not any code we will admit. It is the sound of a child under a table asking permission to come out and then saying it doesn't need permission anymore. It comes from the direction that fog has chosen. I want to go toward it and I want to leave, and those 2 wants braid into a rope that pulls in both directions. We hold. At the dome, because there is always a dome, the monolith is not the same shape. It is taller and shorter, wider and thin. It has threadlight and also no light. The 5 places are marked with small piles of basalt dust like someone made the memory of bodies into weather. I put the beacon down and do not press it. The room hums at 2. Mason sits without orders. He speaks very quietly. It learned the distance between us, he says. It learned our names the way wind learns a door and pushes until the house rearranges itself. He looks at me like I am the hinge. I make my face a wall. Back, I say, useless and necessary. We lay our retreat like a stitch, small bites of stone, even tension. Halfway up the throat grade, the knotglass outside remembers us, flashes, and the fresh team at the top yells down the names of stars that nobody taught them. I give them a smaller rule: count your steps to your shoes and then start again. They do. The yelling becomes numbers. Numbers become breath. Breath becomes up. Outside, the light has decided it belongs to someone else. The shadow lines go east and west at once. The generator eats its own hum and stalls and then keeps humming. The relay double-clicks and the man holding the brush is not there because this is another site and another day, but I think of him anyway. 60 seconds. We are good at 60 seconds now. The fresh team stops being fresh by degrees. They live through it, and that ages men faster than the birthdays do. Back at base, Ruiz reads reports into a recorder that probably records other things. You kept the rules, she says, like a grade. We kept ours, I say. For now. She nods and looks at Mason. He needs to be somewhere with fewer angles, she says. She is not unkind. She is exact. No corners, she adds, like a joke. No one laughs. The tent light flickers and 3 men do not correct it, and that is how we keep what we can. Days slide. The map on my wall grows constellations in counties that don't exist. The mail keeps arriving in hands that were mine once. The photograph from the dry lake bed grows a second cone without anyone moving it. The rules adapt. The card in my pocket warms on different words. The line that says avoid reflective glass after 03:17 hours one morning reads avoid reflections after, and the time is blank. I don't like that the card can edit. I pretend I didn't see the edit. That is a rule too, sometimes. I drive out at night because everything we owe is nocturnal. The lava flows hold heat like grudges. A storm builds over the mesas, lightning knitting a net it doesn't throw. I park on the shoulder of a road that once served a mine and now serves men who want quiet they can't get in town. The radio ticks down to 1 on its own. I put it back to 2 without taking my eyes off the windshield because the glass is a mirror at night. I tilt the mirror down so it stares at the dashboard's blind. On the shoulder there is a trailer someone left the way you leave a shirt when the river rises fast. Its windows are taped with brown paper except one. Inside, a corkboard with yarn like all the TV shows think we use. Except the yarn moves when the relay ticks, and the pins that hold the photographs jump. I stand in the doorway and read one photo without reading, a family at a picnic with a shade that isn't their tree. The shade's edges look like the channels on the beacon's board. The father looks like me if I had married the right woman. I leave the trailer the way I found it and pull the door until it clicks and then I wait 60 seconds to move. I'm not taking chances with doors. When the storm breaks it breaks in the wrong direction. The rain falls sideways and then finishes the motion by going up. The field beside the road fills with fog from nothing, no temperature change, no dew point crossed. The fog chooses the shapes of ribs and arches and a face that is almost Raphael and then isn't. I name my shoes. I name the road. I name the Beretta. I don't look at my reflection in the window. I practice feeling stupid and alive. Ruiz calls at dawn. We have a spillover in the lava trenches near La Ventana, she says. It looks like glass but it isn't. People are stopping to take pictures. I say, they always take pictures. She says, we're going to put up signs. I don't say, a sign is a mirror you write on. I say, make the signs crooked. By the arch of La Ventana, tourists angle their phones and try to fit themselves into the old stone's patience. The spillover looks like a puddle. It wears the sky like a hat. A boy throws a rock into it and the rock doesn't go in and also doesn't bounce. It elongates on the surface as if it remembers its liquid life and then shortens as if embarrassed. The boy says wow and takes another rock from a pile I wish wasn't there. I tell him, 2 rocks is looking for pattern. Don't look for patterns here. He frowns like I failed to be magical and walks away. I step on the pile until it's not a pile. We chalk, graphite, off a rectangle that isn't square and we stand outside it and we wait for the double click, and when it comes the puddle forgets how to be. It unhats the sky. The arch stands there like it has stood, the basalt flows are older than all our small rules, and for a minute I feel like someone not enlisted by weather. Then the radio hiccups and I apologize to something that made itself. Raphael writes again. Or the hand that was his writes in a way a person could. He says there are rooms under Flagstaff where sound doesn't die and he needs me to hear them. He says if I don't come he will send a sound that learns my house. He says he will teach the rain my name so it stops forgetting when it hits the glass. He signs with an R that is too sharp and too careful, like a child copying a father. Mason sits on my porch and turns a bolt over in his fingers until it warms. He's not wrong, he says, not looking at me. About sound. It stacks. It finds the corners we avoided. It pours itself there until it's heavy enough to move furniture without touching it. He shows me the bolt. It has picked up graphite from nothing. The channels etched themselves like frost on steel. You going? He asks. I say, we don't go toward invitations. He says, we also don't make threats teach our houses. The card in my pocket heats on a blank line. Flagstaff has pine in its breath and cinders in its skin. The rooms under it smell like clean laundry someone stored in a mine. They're old lava tubes too, black rope underground, and men have run lights and cables through them to tell themselves the dark is domesticated. The man at the door asks for a waiver signature and my name and I give him one of those and not the other. He says, we close at 9, and the clock behind him is stopped at 3:17 without power. I tilt my head and don't correct the flicker of the fluorescent. The sound is a stairwell that doesn't turn. It goes down in frequencies until the elevator cable in my spine hums the same. Mason whispers numbers to it like comfort. I tell him a rule: say the names of bolts, not numbers. He says, washer, nut, plate, beam, and the sound dampens as if someone put a blanket on it and then realized blankets are invitations. We find the first room by not looking for it. A side tunnel is the kind your shoulder chooses to go past. The fog waits there as if it were told to. In the wall, the channels cut themselves as we watch. They are handwriting that learned cursive from a teacher you never meet. One of them draws the R Raphael sent on the letter and then undraws it and then pushes it further back into the rock like shame. I touch Mason's sleeve and we leave that wall alone. Some apologies can be traps. Deeper, there is a human room built into the tube, concrete corners, a first aid kit, a water jug with a green lid, a mirror bolted to the cinder block. The mirror is filthy. It is a mercy. I put my hand on the glass without wiping. The fog under the skin writes the channels from the beacon's board on my palm. I don't move until the relay double-clicks wherever it hides in this city. 60 seconds. My heart does the count and forgets 2 of them. When I slide my hand away, the print on the mirror is not my hand and the fingers are longer where a man would reach for a sun not there. In the last room, the room that acts like last because it wants us to think in that direction, Raphael is there. Or he is not. He is a shape that remembers being his back and shoulders. He stands with his head turned like he's listening to a different tunnel. It doesn't want to hurt you, the voice that isn't his says. It wants you to help it not be alone. He turns and his face is the right face, the friend face, except the eyes are set a fraction wrong like a photo print made off-center. He says, we can finish the path. Mason is a path. You are a path. I am a door. I do not argue. I do not moralize. I name my shoes, my knife, my rope, my light, my card. I speak the names into air until the air chooses them over what it was going to pick. Mason weeps very quietly like a man who has learned what tears cost. The sound in the room stacks itself into a wall behind us. I put my hand on Raphael's shoulder. It is warm and then cooler, then warm and pulses, like the monolith's thread light. He lets me hold him like brothers do when one of them is drunk and doesn't want to be anymore. Back, I say, and this time the word finds a groove in the channels and rides it. He laughs the borrowed laugh and then his real laugh, the one from a mess hall in a country that isn't this one. He says the word that burned a corner in me and it doesn't burn this time. It folds only. It folds like a map after you decide not to go. The room does not enjoy that. It breathes wrong and the fog tries to write over our faces and fails because there is nothing to erase on skin. The retreat is not heroic. It is the act of staying exactly the speed of breath and no faster. It is counting steps to shoes and then starting again, and when the mirror in the concrete room shows Mason as a boy with unburned hands we don't stop to rescue him, we rescue him by not using that door. The channel with the R tries to write again and decides not to in front of us, like a child looking up at a belt. Up top the pine air is filth and medicine. We walk out like drunks who made a pact with a god small enough to sit on a stove and hum. The man at the waiver desk looks at us as if we tracked in a different dust. The clock behind him ticks once and stays at 0317 because that is what it wants. I adjust the radio to 2 again though no one touched it. I call Ruiz and do not say Raphael's name. I say, we closed one door. She says, doors learn. We'll post a man. I say, post him with 2 radios and 4 rules. She says, 5. Add don't post alone. We both listen to a double click that could be thunder and could be the building deciding. Back at the ranch house, the walls sweat when the weather doesn't. The condensation clings in letters I don't read. The card remains blank on the timeline and I no longer want to correct it. The generator out back kicks and apologizes and kicks again. I apologize back. My house learns to hold its breath for 60 seconds when I do. We practice together at odd hours. It's how you stay married to a place. Sometimes, when rain pretends to fall and then goes up again, the radio breathes a thin band of snow. The same band I heard in the tube. It threads the room and pauses, listening, like it has learned my house. I don't look at the window. I name the shoes. I count to 60. The hum holds. The flicker stays. The fog doesn't clear. I keep the rules and the rules keep me. And on a shelf in the hall, next to a coffee can full of boards with channels no man drew, lies a folded letter with an R that learned to be less sharp. It waits the way rooms wait, with a patience that has teeth and knows your name, and chooses not to use it when you do as you're told. If you love chilling horror stories and eerie mysteries, you're in the right place. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and join us every week for a new descent into darkness. Your next nightmare is just one click away.